Close your eyes for a moment, not to escape, but to listen. Listen to that quiet, almost imperceptible vibration inside you, the one that has been silenced, buried, ignored for far too long. How many times have you allowed a single word, a passing comment, a careless opinion to shrink the light inside you? How many nights have you spent sifting through the ashes of what someone else said about you, searching for proof of your own worth in the ruins? Let me speak to you as if I were sitting on the edge of your bed, looking into your tired eyes and telling you a truth that most people never hear. It is not what others say about you that breaks you. What weakens you is the absence of an inner foundation, an inner love strong enough to withstand the shifting tides of external approval, a love that is a rock, not a wave. Let me be blunt. Most of us have lived like addicts, hungry for our next hit of validation, likes, compliments, reassurance, recognition. We chase these tiny sparks as if our dignity depended on them. But that very search is the wound. As long as your self-worth depends on the reflection in someone else's eyes, you will remain fragile, vulnerable to storms, criticism, rejection, and even silence. Here is the uncomfortable truth. You have mistaken a mask for your identity. That mask, your persona, was crafted to be accepted, to belong, to avoid rejection. It helps you navigate society, yes, but it is not you. It is an old costume you've worn for so long that you forgot you ever took it off. And like any costume, it tears easily when someone pulls on the seams. This is why a single cutting comment can make your entire world crumble, because the blow isn't landing on your true self. It hits the fragile mask you thought was your home. So what is genuine self-love? It's not affirmations whispered into the mirror. It's not a motivational phrase printed on a mug. Self-love that heals is an excavation, an archaeology of the soul. It is the courage to dig, to uncover, to face what has been buried. It is the process of integrating the parts of yourself you rejected, hid, or felt ashamed of. In Jungian terms, it is the confrontation with your shadow. Your shadow is not just the negative in you. It is also your unused potential, your untapped strength, your raw and unpolished power. Rejecting the shadow means rejecting the possibility of becoming whole. And then there is projection, the unconscious mechanism through which you attribute to others the very qualities you refuse to recognize in yourself. Your fears, your desires, your insecurities, you see them reflected in the world around you. When someone says something that hurts, the pain doesn't originate from them. It comes from the wound inside you that their words accidentally touched. Ask yourself with absolute honesty, when a comment knocks me down, what is really being touched? Is it their opinion? Or is it the ancient doubt inside me, the secret suspicion that maybe I am not enough? That ancient suspicion will only dissolve when you build an inner foundation that cannot be shaken by applause or criticism. The first step, uncomfortable but necessary, is to face your shadow with courage. Name what you have avoided. Feel what you have buried. Bring your unspoken emotions into the light: anger, envy, pride, fear, desire, and then declare, I am more than this. And this is also part of me. Integration does not mean suppression. It means acknowledgement. It means taking the raw material of your humanity and transforming it into strength. You may be wondering, how do I begin this journey? Begin with small acts of inner honesty. Observe the judgments you project onto others, especially the ones that irritate you the most. They map your shadow with frightening accuracy. When you shrink in the face of a compliment because you secretly believe you don't deserve it, pause and question, where did that belief originate? Who taught you to feel undeserving? Write it down. Speak it out loud. Talk to someone who truly listens. Part of becoming whole is dismantling the old narratives that keep you small. And remember, individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, is not selfishness. It is loyalty to your own soul. A person who is centered, grounded, rooted in themselves, no longer begs for attention. They offer presence. They are not destroyed by criticism. They evaluate it. They separate opinion from truth. They stop being a mirror for the world and become a source of their own reflection. Transformation requires honesty, yes, but do not mistake honesty for harshness. When you integrate your shadow, dormant resources awaken: creativity, courage, integrity, clarity. What once felt like weakness becomes refined wisdom. Pain becomes a kind of craftsmanship, a way of shaping your life from the inside outward. Now I'm going to ask something simple but powerful. If you're listening right now, write in the comments your first vow of commitment. Just one sentence. It could be, I choose to face my shadow. I claim my inner worth. I decide to stop abandoning myself. Write it with conviction. The moment you declare it, you break an invisible cycle of silence and begin creating yourself in a new way. And if this message resonated with you, subscribe to Unshakable Mind. This is where we walk the inner journey together. Leave a like so other seekers can find their way to these words. Do not expect perfect peace right away. Expect courage, quiet. Trembling at first, but real. Courage is not something you wait for. It is something that grows every time you choose to look inward instead of running outward. And in the next chapter of this journey, we'll go deeper into the practical side of shadow work. Simple exercises, sharp questions for your daily reflection, and the process of transforming wounds into fuel for individuation. But before we move forward, remain with me. There is something inside you that wants to wake up. Close your eyes. Again, inhale slowly, exhale softly, and now look within, not with fear, but with reverence. Every fear, every doubt, every insecurity, everything you usually push into the forgotten corners of your soul, all of it must be seen, acknowledged, and integrated. To look directly at your own shadow is an act of power. It is the moment you say to yourself, you are part of me too, and I accept you. When you do this, something extraordinary begins to shift. The emptiness that once made you chase love, attention, validation, starts to fill from the inside. You stop searching in others for what was always your responsibility to find within. You stop entering fragile, destructive relationships in an attempt to receive what only your inner self could provide. Emotional dependence dissolves the moment you awaken. And as I often say, those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. Awakening is breaking the spell, disarming the illusion that your worth depends on external forces. When you awaken, the chains of social approval snap. The gaze of others stops being the mirror that tells you who you are. You become your own reference point. But now we must talk about something sensitive, something that touches the wounds most people avoid: relationships. Why do so many people, intelligent, conscious, spiritually aware, continue to tolerate humiliation, coldness, indifference, emotional neglect, or even abuse? The answer lies deep within the unconscious layers of the psyche. The truth is painful, but freeing. We accept the love we believe we deserve. If somewhere inside you, you believe you are unworthy of love, you will unconsciously attract people who reflect that belief back to you. Weak self-love functions like an invisible magnet that pulls in exactly the experiences that mirror your wound. If you carry rejection within you, you attract those who reject. If unresolved abandonment lives in your chest, you attract those who leave. If deep guilt rests in your stomach, you attract those who blame. It is not punishment, it is psychological law. The outer world mirrors the inner one with terrifying precision, but within that truth lies something revolutionary. When you build genuine self-love, toxic relationships stop resonating with you. You don't need to run from them. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to protect yourself like a soldier in a war. They simply lose their power over you. Why? Because they no longer find fertile soil in your wounds. Your inner frequency shifts. What once felt irresistible and familiar suddenly feels dissonant, transparent, predictable. You begin to see manipulation with clarity, emotional games with detachment, and toxic dynamics with almost clinical precision. And something inside you quietly whispers, "I am done with this." That is the sign that self-love has begun to take root. This entire process is what I call individuation, the journey toward the self, the psychic center that unifies and harmonizes every part of your personality. It's where the conscious and unconscious finally meet, converse, and collaborate. When you reach this state, self-love is no longer something you build like a wall. It is something revealed, uncovered, rediscovered. It is a sun that was always there, simply hidden behind clouds of trauma, beliefs, and borrowed identities. And here is one of the deepest secrets I've learned on my path. To love yourself is not to love yourself despite your flaws. It is to understand that what you call flaws are simply unintegrated parts of your wholeness. The anger you suppress contains vital fire. The envy you deny may contain your unexpressed potential. The selfishness you condemn may hide your capacity for healthy boundaries. The vulnerability you fear is the doorway to authenticity. When each of these forces is welcomed and integrated, they stop acting as inner enemies and transform into raw personal power. Now imagine just for a moment what your life would look like if you no longer needed anyone's approval. If you could walk into any room, speak to anyone, face any situation with the calm authority of someone who knows their own value. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is the disguise of insecurity. True self-love is quiet, steady, grounded, serene. It is not an exhibition, it is a state. When you know yourself deeply, you no longer need to prove anything. Your presence alone carries weight. And this inner transformation begins with what I call confession. Not religious confession, psychological confession. It is the moment you admit to yourself the lies you have told your own soul, the times you silenced your values to be accepted, the masks you wore to fit in, the subtle betrayals you committed against yourself so you wouldn't be rejected. This is the most painful part of the journey, but it is also the most liberating, because we can only transform what we have the courage to acknowledge. After confession comes illumination. The moment awareness expands and sees everything under a new light. Illumination is not a miracle, it is a consequence. When the shadow is integrated, it becomes a powerful source of inner fire instead of a hidden threat. And that fire will carry us into the next stage of your awakening. What once controlled you begins to transform into your ally. You are no longer dragged by unconscious emotions. You begin to guide them with awareness, with steadiness, with a kind of quiet authority that grows from the inside out. And at this point in your inner path, something extraordinary becomes clear. The world did not change, you did. And because you changed, the world now responds to you in a completely different way. The same eyes that once judged you no longer pierce you. The same criticism that once shattered you now invites reflection. without destabilizing your core. The same silence that once felt like rejection now feels like peace, like space, like freedom. If these words touch something inside you, declare it openly. I choose to awaken. That simple sentence is the seed of transformation. And remember, subscribe to Unshakable Mind. This journey is only beginning. The next chapter will show you how illumination becomes transformation, how suffering becomes wisdom, and how to walk through the world with lightness while staying centered within yourself. Stay with me. Your awakening has already begun. When you start to recognize the patterns that repeat your pain, everything changes. The world shifts colors. What once felt random now feels purposeful. You begin to see that the recurring toxic relationships, the frustrations that haunt you, the fears that freeze you, none of these are coincidences. They are expressions of something deeper. Unresolved psychological complexes, autonomous inner forces that shape your life without your awareness. These complexes, rejection, abandonment, inferiority, guilt, operate like invisible threads, pulling you toward familiar pain. You think you're choosing freely, but in truth, the unconscious chooses first. And every time you repeat a destructive pattern, it is not punishment. It is an opportunity, a door to healing. But healing demands courage. It demands that you look at the pattern and ask yourself, why do I repeat this? What inside me still needs this pain? This question, simple, brutal, powerful, opens doors the intellect could never open. The third stage of self-love is something I call inner education. The art of relearning how to relate to yourself. It is not theory, it is practice, it is embodied truth. It is saying no when your body screams no, even if the whole world expects a yes. It is setting boundaries where you once submitted. It is choosing authenticity over approval. And every time you choose your truth, something inside you strengthens. Self-love is a psychological muscle. It does not begin strong. It grows through pain, through repetition, through emotional discipline, each choice aligned with your inner truth is a training session that makes you more whole. And over time, authenticity stops being an effort. It becomes your natural state. You no longer need reminders that you are worthy. You know. You feel it in your body, your breath, your posture. Self-love stops being something you practice. It becomes something you are. Other people's opinions lose weight, not because of arrogance, but because fullness replaced emptiness. When your inner cup is full, you no longer beg for drops of attention. But this is where many people get lost. They confuse self-love with narcissism, and Jung was clear. The narcissist does not love themselves. They admire themselves only because they secretly despise themselves. Their self-admiration is a desperate attempt to silence an internal void. True self-love is the opposite. It is a serene acceptance of your entire being, light and shadow, virtue and mistake. Everything integrated, without the need to pretend perfection. And here is a truth. Almost no one tells you, real self-love hurts. Yes, it hurts. It hurts to see everything you tolerated. It hurts to recognize how often you betrayed your own values to be accepted. It hurts to let go of relationships you once believed you needed to survive. It hurts to confront the illusions you built to feel loved. This pain is the birth of your true self. Psychological transformation is painful because it requires the death of the false ego, the identity you constructed to be loved, to be seen, to be approved. Like every symbolic death, it comes with grief. But this grief is sacred because from the ashes of the false self, the authentic soul emerges. And then an inevitable question arises. Why is it so hard to maintain self-love inside relationships? The answer is simple and profoundly human, because relationships activate your childhood survival patterns. In childhood, your survival literally depended on your parents' approval. Their attention was life. Their disapproval was danger. This imprint lives deep in the unconscious, and as adults, we repeat the same script. We look for parents in partners, bosses, friends. We fear rejection because deep down, some ancient part of us still believes rejection equals death. But here is the liberating truth. You are no longer that child. Today, you can nourish yourself emotionally. Your self-love can sustain you. You can exist without being approved. You can breathe without earning someone's permission. This is what Jung called the second half of life, the moment when you stop looking outward for yourself and begin looking inward. Unfortunately, many never reach this stage. They grow older physically, but remain psychologically attached to childhood, always trying to please, always chasing approval, always begging for connection. But you are breaking that cycle now. And this awakening continues in the next chapter. Mas há uma beleza imensa quando alguém chega a esse ponto. O amor próprio verdadeiro é contagioso. Não porque tenta convencer, mas porque transborda. Ele se sente na presença, no olhar, na postura. As pessoas percebem a calma, a dignidade, a ausência de pressa em ser amado. Você começa a inspirar respeito, não por exigir, mas porque simplesmente se respeita. E o mais curioso é que, quando você realmente se ama, seus relacionamentos se aprofundam. Porque você já não precisa que o outro complete o que falta em você. Você se torna inteiro. E por isso é capaz de amar o outro como ele é, não como um espelho das suas carências. É aqui que o amor próprio deixa de ser apenas psicológico e se torna espiritual. Você vira um canal de algo maior, uma consciência que observa, acolhe e cria. Agora, quero que você declare, em voz alta ou nos comentários, se sentir no coração: eu escolho ser inteiro. Essa afirmação simples planta uma semente poderosa no inconsciente. E se essas palavras tocaram algo em você, lembre-se de se inscrever no canal Mentalidade Inabalável. Seguimos juntos nesse mergulho profundo rumo ao autoconhecimento e à liberdade interior. No próximo bloco, falaremos sobre como o verdadeiro amor próprio se transforma em propósito e como, ao viver a partir do seu centro, você deixa de buscar sentido e passa a encarná-lo. Continue comigo. O despertar está apenas começando. Quando duas pessoas verdadeiramente inteiras se encontram, algo sutil, mas poderoso, acontece. Elas não se relacionam mais para completar-se, mas para compartilhar-se. Não procuram metades da laranja. São laranjas completas. E quando duas inteirezas se unem, o amor deixa de ser um jogo de necessidade e se transforma em uma dança de liberdade. Em vez de dependência, surge a interdependência. Em vez de carência, nasce a escolha consciente. Permita-me lhe dizer algo profundo. A forma como você se relaciona consigo mesmo é o molde invisível de todos os relacionamentos que você atrai. Se você se trai, atrairá quem o trai. Se você se abandona, atrairá quem o abandona. Se você se respeita, atrairá quem o respeita. O mundo exterior não é inimigo, é espelho. Jung chamou isso de projeção, o mecanismo pelo qual colocamos fora aquilo que ainda não reconhecemos dentro. Os relacionamentos são o palco onde o inconsciente se expressa. Cada pessoa que entra em sua vida carrega uma mensagem sobre você mesmo. Cada conflito é uma oportunidade de autoconhecimento disfarçada. Mas há algo essencial que você precisa entender. O amor próprio não é uma rocha imóvel. Ele é dinâmico, vivo, pulsante. Há dias em que você o sentirá vibrante e outros em que ele parecerá distante. Isso não é fraqueza, é processo. O importante é permanecer comprometido com o caminho da individuação, esse retorno contínuo ao centro do seu ser. E o maior inimigo desse caminho? A comparação. Jung advertia, cada vez que você se compara, abandona seu próprio caminho. A comparação é o roubo silencioso da autenticidade. Não existe régua externa para medir o valor de uma psique. Cada alma tem seu ritmo, sua geografia, seu próprio tempo de maturação. Por isso não se apresse. Não existe atraso no caminho da alma. O amor próprio não é um destino. É uma espiral ascendente. Nunca termina, apenas aprofunda. E cada camada revela outra sombra a integrar. Isso não é recaída, é crescimento. A solidão nesse processo é um laboratório sagrado. O próprio Jung dizia que passava longas horas só, não por desprezo ao mundo, mas por necessidade da alma. É na solidão que as máscaras caem. É no silêncio que o verdadeiro diálogo interior começa. É ali que o inconsciente fala, que a psique respira, que o amor próprio amadurece. Muitos fogem da solidão porque temem o que encontrarão dentro de si. Mas quem aprende a saborear a própria companhia alcança um poder raro, o poder da completude. Quando a solidão se torna nutritiva, quando o silêncio já não oprime, mas acolhe, você descobre um tipo de amor que ninguém pode tirar. Você já não precisa de ruído constante, nem de validação contínua. Pode estar consigo mesmo e se sentir inteiro. E há algo ainda mais belo. O inconsciente fala por meio de símbolos, sonhos, sincronicidades, imagens que o fascinam. Tudo isso são mensagens do seu eu mais profundo. Ignorá-las é como deixar cartas da alma sem abrir. Escutá-las é uma forma silenciosa de amor próprio. Significa honrar a voz mais autêntica que habita em você. O verdadeiro amor próprio também inclui aceitar o lado obscuro. Não existe totalidade sem sombra. Não se pode. There is a profound misunderstanding most people carry throughout their lives. They mistake self-love for loving only the parts of themselves they find acceptable. But light doesn't deny the night. It transcends it. Your anger carries a message. Your sadness carries a purpose. Your fear carries a function. Integration is not about silencing these forces. It is about listening to them. And the moment you begin to truly listen, you begin to love them. Loving your shadow is the first step toward authentic inner freedom. But there is another pillar that holds the entire structure of self-love in place, and without it, everything collapses. Boundaries. Carl Jung understood something essential. Without clear boundaries, self-love dissolves into self-betrayal. Boundaries are not walls, they are living membranes, like skin, protecting you, allowing healthy exchanges, defining where you end and where the other begins. Without these inner borders, you lose yourself in the constant urge to please, fix, rescue, or carry everyone else's emotional weight. A boundary is a quiet declaration that says, I respect myself too much to disappear inside you. And when you begin to set healthy boundaries, something almost magical happens. Your relationships become more honest, more pure, more real. Because there is no such thing as freedom without borders, and no such thing as love without respect. Think about it. Every time you say yes, while your soul is screaming no, a fracture appears inside you. And each fracture weakens your self-worth. But every time you choose yourself, even when it hurts, your inner foundation grows stronger, deeper, more grounded. I want you to write in the comments, as a symbolic act of commitment to your own inner truth, I choose to respect my boundaries. These words are not just a sentence, they are a vow of self-love. And if this message resonates with you, subscribe to Unshakable Mind. Here, every reflection is a step deeper into the mystery of who you truly are. In the next block, we will talk about the practical power of boundaries, how to say no without guilt, how to protect your emotional integrity, and how real freedom blossoms from inner discipline. Stay with me. The spiral of consciousness still has much to reveal. Boundaries are the invisible borders that protect your emotional integrity. They function like a psychic skin, allowing in what nourishes you and blocking what poisons you. Every time someone violates your boundaries, a part of you splinters. But every time you defend them, even if your voice trembles, your inner roots grow deeper into the soil of your soul. Why is it so hard to set boundaries? Because every no awakens an ancient fear, the fear of abandonment. Jung traced this fear back to our earliest childhood experiences, to moments when we were too small to survive without external love. We carry, without realizing it, the unconscious belief that saying no might cost us affection or connection. But here is the great paradox. Allowing someone to disrespect you because you fear losing them is the most profound form of self-abandonment. Real abandonment doesn't come from the outside. It begins inside, in the moment you choose someone else over your own truth. Jungian self-love doesn't seek perfection. It seeks wholeness. Perfection is rigid, lifeless, synthetic. Wholeness is fluid, contradictory, alive. Do not strive to be perfect. Strive to be whole. Accept your paradoxes, strong and vulnerable. Confident and occasionally insecure, independent yet human enough to need connection. All of this can coexist. The psyche, Jung said, is inherently paradoxical, and in that paradox resides truth. Many people confuse self-love with selfishness, but the difference is clear. Selfishness is born from lack, from the emptiness that tries to swallow the world to feel full. Self-love is born from fullness, from the recognition that you are already whole, and therefore able to share from the overflow. People who truly love themselves do not isolate. They love better because they recognize in others the same spark of value they honor in themselves. Real love does not exclude, it expands. But the path to this unshakable inner love requires facing a silent enemy, the inferiority complex. Every human carries it to some degree. It is that whisper in the back of your mind that says, "You're not good enough. Others are better. You don't deserve love." This complex is formed in childhood, when we lack the maturity to distinguish between facts and interpretations, and in adulthood it lingers, unless we confront it consciously. Transformation begins the moment you realize that this complex is not a truth. It is a story, and stories can be rewritten. Jung taught the difference between ego and self. The ego is the small narrative you believe about who you think you are. The self is the totality beneath the narratives, the vastness that remains when all masks fall away. Real self-love cannot come from ego stories, because ego stories are always incomplete, fragile, conditional. Authentic love is born from contact with the self, not with the image you try to maintain. If you want a truly transformative exercise, try what Jung called active imagination. Write a dialogue with your shadow. Ask it, what do you need? What are you afraid of? What are you trying to express? And then listen, without judging, without rationalizing, without running away. Your shadow doesn't want to be destroyed, it wants to be understood, and understanding it is the beginning of becoming whole, without rationalizing. Because the shadow is not an enemy to be eliminated, it is a fragment of you longing to be seen. This intimate encounter becomes a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. It is an act of reconciliation, and every reconciliation you make with yourself becomes another stone in the foundation of authentic self-love. The kind of self-love I'm speaking about is resilient. It doesn't shatter at the first rejection. It doesn't dissolve at the first criticism. And the reason is simple. It isn't built on the fragile, shifting opinions of others, but on the deep, unshakable knowledge of who you are. It is like a tree with roots that dig into the earth. The wind may bend it, but nothing can tear it from the ground. When you anchor yourself within, the world may shift, collapse, rebuild itself, and yet something inside you remains. Unmoved. But Jung also warned us about psychic vampires, those who drain your energy, who make you question your worth, who feed on your guilt and your desire to please. Recognizing these people is not cruelty. It is psychological survival. You owe nothing to anyone who tries to dim your inner fire. Walking away from such presences is not selfish. It is an act of preservation, an act of loyalty to yourself. Your first responsibility is, and always will be, to your own soul. And here lies a truth many avoid because of how uncomfortable it is. Self-love includes loving your wounds, not the pain itself, but the wisdom hiding beneath it. Every wound is a teacher in disguise. Every trauma is a doorway that, when walked through consciously, expands your soul. To love your wounds is to say, I accept the story I lived, but I am no longer held hostage by it. That is the beginning of true inner freedom. When you stop fighting the past loses its power. When you welcome your shadow, your light expands without effort. When you respect yourself deeply, the world learns, almost mysteriously, to reflect that respect back to you. Now, as a symbolic commitment to your healing, I want you to write in the comments, I choose myself, even when I'm afraid. And if these words touch something within you, subscribe to Unshakable Mind. Here, every reflection is a step in the journey of the soul, an invitation to dive deeper into the mystery that you truly are. In the next block, we'll explore how your wounds can become sources of power, how pain transforms into the most creative force of your being. Stay close. This journey is only beginning. When you begin to integrate your wounds, something extraordinary happens. They stop being scars and become resources. Pain stops being a weight and becomes wisdom. A wound stops being a boundary and becomes a portal. Jung understood this profoundly. He taught that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, cannot exist without self-love, and authentic self-love cannot exist without individuation. They are two rivers feeding each other, merging into a single current. The more you know yourself, the more you love yourself. The more you love yourself, the more courage you have to know yourself. This is the virtuous cycle of inner transformation. When you venture into your inner depths, you find a center, silent, indestructible, filled with purpose, a center that does not depend on anything outside of you. This is where unshakable self-love is born. People who reach this state radiate a kind of silent magnetism. They have nothing to prove. They do not compete. They do not chase attention. Their presence is enough, and paradoxically, it is precisely because they do not seek love that love seeks them. There is something irresistibly powerful about someone who is whole within. The world recognizes, even unconsciously, the vibration of integrity. Jungian self-love is fluid because it embraces impermanence. You evolve, life evolves, and that's part of the beauty. True self-love does not cling to a fixed idea of who you are. To love yourself, in Jung's vision, is to allow yourself to die and be reborn psychologically, again and again, each time more authentic, more conscious, more free. And now we must speak of something essential: forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness. Carrying guilt is like drinking poison and expecting another person to die, but Jungian forgiveness is not the shallow forgiveness that repeats, "It's fine," while the heart is still bleeding. Real forgiveness is born from understanding. Understanding why you acted the way you did. Understanding which shadow was in command. Which emotional complex was shaping your behavior. Once you understand the why, the anger dissolves, the guilt loosens, and forgiveness emerges, not as escape, but as liberation. And here lies the deepest truth of all. Self-love, in Jung's vision, is not an emotional luxury. It is a psychological necessity. Without it, you live fragmented, dependent, disconnected from your own essence. With it, you become whole, integrated, and free. It is the difference between merely reacting to life and living from the unshakable center of your own being. The question is not, can I build unshakable self-love? The real question is this: are you willing to do the inner work that unshakable love requires? Are you willing to face your shadow with honesty? 2. Look directly at the parts of yourself you've rejected. To set boundaries, even if that means losing people who benefited from your silence. Are you willing to die psychologically so that a more authentic version of you can be born? This is the crossroads that separates those who awaken from those who continue to sleepwalk through their own lives. You can continue living with fragile self-love, vulnerable to every wind, shaken by every opinion. Or you can begin, today, to walk toward your center, that indestructible core of your being that no criticism can touch and no rejection can break. And if these words echoed through you, if something inside stirred even for a moment, then the process has already begun. Now you carry a responsibility, not only to yourself, but to the world, because when one person heals, the entire collective shifts, even if just a little. That is why I ask you to share this video, not for me, but for someone out there who is feeling broken right now, questioning their worth, seeking love in places that only offer pain. Your share might be the thread that pulls them back to themselves. And I want you to declare your power in the comments. I choose to forgive myself and be reborn. Tell me, too, what part of your shadow are you ready to integrate? What boundary do you need to honor? What mask are you prepared to release? Your vulnerability might be the light that illuminates someone else's path. Remember this: none of us are walking this journey alone, and Unshakable Mind exists to remind you of that with every step. So if you haven't yet, subscribe now, activate the notifications, and leave your like. Awakening is more powerful when we walk side by side, and the next video might be exactly the message your soul has been waiting to hear. Keep going. The true encounter with your deepest self begins the moment you stop running from yourself. You might be wondering why I insist that you stay here, why I encourage you to listen, reflect, and return to this space again and again. It's not because I need your attention. It's because you need constant reminders of your own power, of your worth, of your infinite capacity to transform. Because the world out there will try to make you forget who you are every single day. It will push you into comparisons. It will distract you with noise and validation loops. It will convince you that you must become better to deserve love. But what I want, what Jung wanted you to understand, is the opposite. You are already whole. You are already enough. You are already light and shadow dancing together inside you. Every video on Unshakable Mind is not mere content. It is a summons, a call to descend deeper into your psyche, to explore the forgotten chambers of your being, to face what you avoid, and discover that there is love hidden even there. Self-knowledge is not about collecting beautiful phrases. It is about confronting yourself. It is about releasing the lies you were told about who you are. It is about abandoning the belief that you must earn the love that has always been your natural birthright. When Jung spoke of individuation, he wasn't describing a path for the chosen few. He was speaking to you, to your potential to awaken from the collective trance of approval-seeking, to your ability to stop chasing validation and finally begin your walk back toward your own center. This is the path of every human being who decides to become conscious. But hold this truth close. Unshakable self-love is not a distant destination. It is not a prize for the enlightened. It is not the end of a long, exhausting journey. It begins here, now, in this precise moment, with a single decision. The decision to stop searching in others for what only exists within you. The decision to come home to yourself. You can continue trying to be loved, trying to fit in, trying to please. Or you can choose the path of inner truth, the path of being exactly who you are, fully and unapologetically. That is real self-love, the kind that depends on no one because it is born from the divine spark living within you. And if these words touched you, if you feel that quiet pull inside urging you to continue this journey, then stay with us. This space exists for one purpose, to remind you of who you are when the world tries to make you forget. Comment below with presence and intention. I choose to return to myself. Write it as a commitment, a seed. You plant today in the soil of your own heart. And if you're not yet part of this community of awakening, subscribe now to Unshakable Mind. Activate the notifications so you never miss a message meant for your soul. So stay with us. Keep receiving these messages that speak directly to the soul. Each new video will be a mirror for your growth, a reminder that you are never walking this path alone. Because in the end, what Jung wanted most was for every human being to remember that the love they search for was always within them. And now we arrive at the deepest point of this entire journey, the moment when everything said until now condenses into one simple, transformative truth. It comes down to a decision that your worth is not for sale, that your essence is non-negotiable, that your whole being, light and shadow alike, deserves unconditional love, beginning with the love you offer yourself. Jung left us the map of the human soul, but the territory only you can explore. He pointed the way, but you are the one who must walk it. No one can make this journey on your behalf. Because the true encounter with self-love does not happen in books, motivational quotes, or brief moments of reflection. It happens the moment you finally look in the mirror and recognize who is standing there. Behind every mask you've worn, behind every role you've played, behind every story you believed about yourself, there is a silent, unchanging, complete being. A being who has always been worthy of love. Your task is not to become worthy. Your task is simply to remember that you always were. This is the turning point of individuation, to stop searching outside for what your inner world has been trying to show you all along. And when you awaken to this truth, everything changes. Your relationships change because you no longer settle for crumbs. Your work changes because you begin serving the purpose of the soul, not the fear of the ego. your life changes because you stop running and start walking, aware, centered, whole, and it is in this moment that the real revolution begins. Not the revolution out there, but the revolution within you. The quiet revolution of someone who chooses to truly love themselves. Someone who decides to never abandon themselves again. Someone who understands that self-love is not selfishness, but the foundation of inner freedom. So let me ask you, with all sincerity of the soul, are you ready to begin yours? Because if you've made it this far, something in you has already awakened. You've already taken the first step, the most important one, the step toward yourself. And this is only the beginning. The path ahead is vast, beautiful, challenging, and absolutely transformative. So don't stop now. Continue this journey with us on Unshakable Mind. Here, each video is a mirror for your soul, a reminder that the strength you seek is already living inside you. Before we close, I want you to declare, with intention and truth, I choose to love myself unconditionally. Write it so the universe can hear it, and so your own mind can register it as the beginning of a new chapter. And if this message resonated with you, leave your like, subscribe, and activate notifications, because this space is your sanctuary of awareness, your reminder of power, your mirror of growth. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, never forget, the most important love you will ever cultivate in your life is the love you offer yourself. Everything else, success, peace, relationships, purpose, flows from that source. The revolution begins within, and today you have just started yours.